Welcome to another video. I have not been reading for a while because I got back from vacation and just was in a reading slump, and now here we are like a month later. I did, however, start A Vow So Bold and Deadly, the third book in the Curse of Dark and Lonely trilogy, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but I didn't totally enjoy the first book, but I loved the second book. I think this is a good one to start with after this slump because it's not super intricate, it's not super long, and so I started it. I'm on page 46, so not far at all, but I have noticed that the writing is very clearly young adult, and I think I've grown out of it a bit because the last two books in the series I read at least 3 years ago, so it might just be a chill whatever book, but I have started it and I'm going to continue to read it. I don't know what other books I'm gonna read while I film for this vlog, but stick around and you and I will find out. So I am on chapter 10, which is page 76, and I'm liking it a lot more in the 20 pages that I read. Surprisingly, it was frustrating for 40 pages and then it suddenly wasn't. So I'm really enjoying it. There's some good power struggles, power shifts that are fun. I guess I should tell you what A Curse of Dark and Lonely is about. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling where a girl from Washington, D.C. gets taken by the prince's guard, because the prince isn't allowed to leave the castle, to potentially be the person that the prince falls in love with. He transforms into the monster once every, I think, season. It's perpetually fall, and I love Beauty and the Beast, so I did like it, but it wasn't my absolute favorite. And so in this one, obviously it's 3 or 2 books later, there's a new character who has become the queen of this other land in the world, and the prince, and her name's Harper, the girl from Washington, D.C. The prince and Harper are having relationship trouble, but worked it out, and there's talk of going to war with the Beauty and the Beast castle and the other city basically in the world. And so it's shaping up to be a really interesting trilogy finale because everyone's separate, which I guess makes sense. That's normally how trilogy finales work, but everyone is in separate places, and they're probably all gonna have to come together and defeat the big bad magical witch that originally had cursed the prince. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot, surprisingly. I did not think I would. I thought this would be a very mediocre book, but I think I'm gonna keep reading it because I don't have to go to work for 4 hours. So, yay. So I'm on page 162. I'm trying to make it to page 205 today because the book has 405 pages in it and I want to get at least halfway. I am liking it a lot. Things are happening. We have gotten a lot of storylines from the other kingdom, the other city called Still Shallow, with Gray and Leomara, who are the characters there. and they are trying to like work together to like unite these two kingdoms. I think the goal right now is to unite them and just like to have an alliance, but I assume that it's going to manifest into we have to defeat this person who's going to destroy our world. Yeah, I'm like really liking it so far. I didn't think I would. I think it's a good one to start after a slump because it's easy to read. It's from a series that I already know. I already love these characters, and I'm finishing a series, which is gonna be satisfying as hell once it's over. It doesn't really feel like a final book in a series so far, but I'm also like not even halfway through, so there's that. I was gonna say something else, I forgot. Oh, yes. In the vein of it's a really good book to start after a slump, it's fantasy in like a completely different world. Yes, Washington, D.C. exists, but I feel like everyone has kind of forgotten about it. Like, it doesn't really exist in their brains anymore. It's not like an option to go to. So, it's fantasy, it's easy to read. I love the characters already. It's the final book in the trilogy. It's just, it was a good pick. Like, I didn't know that I was picking a good book to read, but I did, and I'm gonna keep going. So I finished A Vow Bold and Deadly. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really loved it. I wasn't expecting to. It did just feel like a generic fantasy. It didn't meet the 5-star mark, but I did really love it. I like flew through the last 200 pages. You're following like 4 different perspectives, and the conflict is that these 2 kingdoms that I mentioned before, there's a lot of tension between the 2 of them, but there's also this like enchantress, because it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, who's the evil one, who they all have to like work together to kill. And then the tagline on the back is like, kingdoms will clash, choose your side. And that didn't really happen. Like, without spoiling it, it's like they defeated the enchantress, and then I was expecting some kind of like political kingdom battle or something, and that didn't happen. So that was a little bit disappointing, which is why it's not a 5-star. But other than that, I really loved it. It didn't focus too hard on the romantic relationships. It was very much like these 2 brothers trying to like repair their relationship and come together, which I really loved. It's very rare that like that's a thing in books nowadays. Like, that's like the central driving relationship in especially fantasy books. I'm glad the series is over though. It was kind of like it was close to my heart a while back, and I'm glad I finished it. And I don't think there are any more books. As for next books, my next reading plan is to start the Final Gambit, which is the 3rd book in, I don't even know what it's called, the Inheritance Games trilogy. Although I think there's like a prequel and a couple spin-offs, which I'm whatever about. We'll see if I want to read those. But this is a series about a girl, like a random girl, who gets some billionaire's inheritance when he dies. And he, like, this billionaire guy loved puzzles and like games, and so he sets like this like big like mystery kind of thing for this girl. Her name's Avery. She like didn't know this man, and now she's like, and now like a whole bunch of people want to like kill her to get the inheritance. So yeah, I read the first one and the second one. They're very quick and confusing because it's kind of like a treasure hunt for something, like for information, to like figure out something, and it's different every single time. Like the goal in the first book was to like figure out like why she was the person this man picked to give his inheritance. And I don't actually remember if that was answered. I think it was. But I think that we're still kind of like trudging along, trying to figure out things. And the way it's told is that it's kind of just like we jump from one, at least in the first and second books, we jump from like one to another, to another, to another, like clues. But by the time you're like halfway through the book, the first couple clues don't matter at all. Like they won't come back. It won't be like, all right, keep this in the back of your brain. It just like, it's a clue for another clue. And it's kind of like you have to suspend your disbelief because it's like, you're just like, why, like, how would you ever think to like look in this place next and then forget every single clue that got you to this place? You know what I mean? So I'm reading, well, I'm like 2 pages into this. I'm expecting it to go super quickly. It's only 350 pages, but I'm excited for this series to be over for me because I'm kind of tired of it. I also picked up The Queen of Attolia on audio. Again, not far into this at all. This is the second book in the Queen's Thief series, a fantasy series about a thief who is like a world-renowned thief and goes on like adventures to steal things for various royalty people in the world. I read the first one called The Thief on audio, so I'm planning on reading the rest of them through an audiobook. So I'm back to my like, I used to do this thing where I would do like one book physically and one book on audio, so I'm back to that. We'll see how it goes. I used to read like a lot when I used to do that, so yeah. So I am halfway through the Final Gambit using my Taylor Swift Light Up bracelet as a bookmark. This book, it's like I said, the kind of mystery is unfolding and it's very contingent on specific things and thoughts that these characters are having. There's no concrete, like, this is 100% what this clue is alluding to. It's always subjective. It's always like, it always relies on the one character thinking this exact thing in the moment, which I just think is very not, like, accurate. But it's super fast. It's super easy to read. I love, like, mysteries with no stakes. This has no stakes. The one stake that it has is like someone has gone missing and they're trying to find them. It's weird how it's working, is that like I'm getting like these like shivers and chills every time they like figure out something, but they're so short-lived. But it's kind of only the like the adrenaline of like knowing what the next step is gonna be that is making me excited. And this is also the kind of book where things are just happening and happening and happening and happening, and they don't connect to the end thing until like 2 or 3 clues before the end. So I'm just reading. I'm just reading it, and probably I'm not going to get anywhere close to the final answer until like 50 pages out from the end. Other than that, I'm enjoying it. Enjoying it is a strong word, but I am interested and I want to know what happens. I think is the most positive way I could put this. I don't have any emotional attachment to any of these characters. I'm not attached to the storyline. Like I said, there's no stakes. So the only real reason I'm reading it is because I want to know what happens, which is not a bad thing. It's the final book in a trilogy, so I think it's okay. That's what I'm like telling myself. But yeah, it's getting interesting, sort of, like more interesting than it was before. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. You can tell things are like happening though. Like there's probably gonna be a big twist. in like a couple pages. So I did end it, for the sake of ending it exactly halfway through, I ended it at a kind of big moment. So I'm gonna keep reading. My goal was to finish this today. I don't know if that's happening. I have almost 200 pages left, so yay. But at least I got halfway. Lighting is trash. We're all just gonna have to deal with it. I finished the Final Gambit. I gave it 2 stars. I just like didn't like it, which is fine, but it was so fast-paced, like almost too fast-paced. There was no story. It was just trying to figure out this like treasure hunt for this person who wanted something that we didn't even know what the thing was until halfway through the book. It was just a lot to take in. I kind of just like read it all in one go today. I was like halfway through earlier today and I just zoomed through it because it was just so easy. To give you some perspective, there are 86 chapters in this book and it's only 350 pages. So each chapter is like averaging like 3 pages, which is just too short in my opinion. So it was just clue after clue after clue after clue. You're not supposed to know anything at the beginning. The beginning of this book is completely redundant. Like you don't figure anything else out that actually has to do with the finale until like halfway through. So I have finished the series. I don't know if I'm gonna continue because I know that there are some spin-off books and books that are planned, but I don't think I'm gonna continue with them. So today took a wild turn. I was editing this video and I got to the part where I talk about the Queen of Attolia on audio. And I was like, oh, I'm only like 5% of the way through it. Let me see how far I'm into it, how long I have left until I have to return it. I look on Libby and there's like a day left. Like I have to return it tomorrow at like 10. And so I'm like, okay, let me just read it. It's like a 4.5 hour long audiobook on 2x speed. And so I'm like, I could do that. Great. So I did it and I finished the Queen of Attolia. Very randomly, I started back where I was earlier today and I finished it and I really loved it. I realized that it was released a while back, like 2000, I think actually 2000. And these are like reprints, but it's so good and strangely twisty and the power dynamics are really, really good. It is the second book in the Queen's Thief trilogy, so no spoilers, but the thief steals stuff that like aren't necessarily physical things, if you get my drift. And I loved the relationships. I like didn't see anything coming at any given point, which I love. That's like one of the things that I really, really love in books is when I just like don't see things coming and I'm like surprised all the time. And I liked it a lot. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't really find anything wrong with it, but a 5-star is like a feeling and it just wasn't a 5-star. I'm happy I finished another book because it's been a hot minute since I finished the Final Gambit. So yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna end this video. I have no reading plans. It's like, I don't know, I'm gonna have to like think on it and get back to you because I have no thoughts in my head about like what I want to read next. So yeah, I'll catch you later.